It's a long time in the music industry. Though as of the past 2 years we've seen bands that have gone on a longer hiatus releasing some fantastic music. An 8-year hiatus is definitely no slouch either, and something that the boys from Dødheimsgard, or Dødheimsgard, we'll just call them DHG because that's what they also go by. It's something that they're familiar with as well. It's been 8 years since the legendary Supervillain Outcast graced our ears and became one of the best avant-garde metal acts of the first 8 years. That's a long time in the music industry for sure. Long time to go without releasing an album, a single, or EP, or any sort of material. But as we've seen as of late, some bands that have been on longer hiatuses have given us some of the best material in their career after taking over 18-year-long breaks. The legendary Dødheimsgard, or Dødheimsgard, I'm not sure. We'll call them DHG because that's also what they call themselves. Hailing from Oslo, Norway, have come back with a vengeance and have given us a fantastic album as a follow-up to the classic Supervillain Outcast, considered one of the greatest avant-garde releases of the last decade, and of course 666 International before that, both legendary and fantastic monolithic albums in their own right. DHG have a pretty big name to live up to, and here in 2015, is the band really capable of producing the same wow factor as they used to? Let's talk about it. Umbra Omega is their new effort, and it just released for streaming the other day, and I'm not sure when the actual release date is. It's very soon, if not already here by the time you're watching this. But regardless, you can hear it for free right now. Just go and look it up. It's available for streaming in full. Now, it is a little over an hour long, with 6 tracks. Rather, 5 tracks, but the first one is an intro. We have The Love Divine, Aphelion Void, God Protocol Axiom, The Unlocking, Architect of Darkness, and Blue Moon Duel. The Love Divine is just a 1-minute long intro to get you into the album. Other than that, the other set of tracks, the other 5 songs, are all around 15 minutes long, all of varying length. Something you've come to expect from avant and prog bands is long songs. Now the cover art is something that DHG I've always have felt they always did something interesting with. They have a very furious and very strange sound, yet their cover art always seemed to juxtapose with what they did. 666 International hardly represented the sounds. Supervillain Outcast seemed to match it and was wonderful. And in this one, it almost seems it's more suited for a neurotech album, perhaps something electronic or dubsteppy, with a harsh gray landscape with the 3 colored triangles on it. It definitely looks pretty cool, but it wasn't what I was expecting. When I saw the cover art, I was like, yo, wait, is that really Dødheimsgard? But yeah, it is. And of course, maybe that's because they have always had a electronic influence in their music. They've never been ones to shy away from using technology in electronica to help their music. I'm not talking about some pitch shift autocorrect bullshit. No. They use, the synths and whatnot and the electronic element to enhance what the sound of their music is. They go for a very, in this album at least, they go for a very deep, big soundscape in each song. You feel in each song as if you are within the landscape on the album cover. The Love Divine is a fantastic little intro to get you into it. It's not an intro along the lines of, the beginning of Colors by Between the Buried and Me. It's not something that'll stand up legendary like that, but it's still something to get you into it because it's like, all right, I'm getting into it. It's not like they smack you upside the head right away. They give you about a minute to get settled in, get the album, get your popcorn out. And then, of course, it gets right into the black goodness that you're familiar with from this band. Now, the production on this was rather strange to me. It was not raw like a black metal band would be, assumedly, but yet it wasn't clean either. It didn't feel quite murky, but it felt like it was just a little bit soft and fuzzy. Not like it was recorded with a potato. It still sounds like it was professionally done. However, the production did feel a little mushy, if you will. But again, I have a feeling this fuzzy, soft impact that the music had is by design. When I say it's got a soft impact, I don't mean it sounds, you know, not powerful in any way, but rather it feels like a blunt instrument rather than a sharp one. But still something that's going to smash your skull in regardless. The vocals, however, are very well done in their quality of recording. However, I don't think they're a standout on this album. In fact, a few times I had to laugh because if you've ever, you know, watched gameplay of or even remotely touched the zombies modes in the newer Call of Duty games like World at War, then this guy's voice on this album will sound right familiar to you. It sounds like the groans of the zombies and of the announcer when you pick up the different items like the nuke and the double points and stuff like that. It's kind of funny. Now, the reason for this, some people have been like, oh, the vocals are just shit, blah, blah, blah. Apparently the vocalist takes some heavy hallucinogens before going into the studio to record his vocal tracks. So that may be why it sounds so crazy. This guy sounds completely unhinged. It almost sounds as if the band is playing and they're like, we'll do our thing, you do your thing. You sing and scream when you feel like it, alright? But yet it does go together well, but the vocals do seem to be a bit boring because it's a lot of going on. But there is plenty of good screaming too. And I also feel that the black metal parts of the album are when the band is at their weakest. You know, it's just the same sort of, you know, sort of the same black metal riff that you've heard many times before. I mean, granted, it is very well played, and, you know, it's powerful, you know, it works, it's a fantastic backing. But that said, it also doesn't really fit with the experimental style of the music. You know, you have some soundscapes that just go off and on into these beautiful nightmarish vistas, and yet when you return to the black metal, it's just sort of like, here we go, back into some normal. I mean, I understand, it is avant-garde black metal, so you need the black metal in there. But I feel like definitely the black metal is not the focal point or the star of the show. And that kind of does bum me out, because even though I'm not a huge black metal fan, you know, an album like At the Heart of Winter by Immortal proves that black metal can be genuinely enjoyable and empowering even if you're not a hardcore black metal fan and you prefer the avant-garde and experimental like myself. That said, it just sort of kind of felt, every time I heard the black metal section come in, it felt kind of repetitive, like I'd been there before, and not necessarily with DHG, but with other bands in the past. But it's not too big a concern because these purely black metal sections do not last long. You know, it goes off into doomy, electronic, proggy territory. And of course, this isn't prog of the nature of Dream Theater, of course. This is different, you gotta understand. At times, I did have memories of a little bit of Maudlin of the Well with the use of the saxophone, you know, because that was used fantastically in their work, as well as KO Dot. But it wasn't a centerpiece, more like just something to add to the dissonance. And I kind of feel that's one of the things that comes to mind when I think of Umbra Omega, is there's a lot, it feels dissonant, but not in a way that it's like echoey and banging off everything. It feels like something that the sounds will come and go, and they'll echo and just fade. You know, it's not something where these things are focused on, where a certain section will be worked into your head thoroughly, you can enjoy it. You know, minute by minute, there's new things every time, and that's a good thing. It keeps it interesting. But that said, it also, for me at least, keeps me from forming an attachment to many sections. I can think of some great piano and sax sections that work really well in the metal, but I would have liked to have seen them last a little longer and a little more dimension put into them. The album is over an hour long, and unfortunately I do feel that it outstays its welcome by just a bit. Perhaps the pacing could have been done a little bit better. I understand they want to throw everything they've got at us, but I think if it was slowed down a little bit and some more care was given to the not metal sections in terms of expanding them and letting them breathe, because at present it just feels like they're just rushing this thing along. You know, metal, avant, experimental, metal. You know, it goes through its phases. And the experimental sections don't have the time to spread themselves out. I understand it does feel very claustrophobic at times, and there are points where it does feel nice and wide and open, but I don't feel that those are done enough. I would get more specific into each of the tracks. I mean, you know, some of the names are really cool, like God Protocol Axiom. That just sounds so cool. But in the end, I did sort of find the songs to ultimately blend together for me, pretty much because there were so many different experimental elements, and it would always come back to the black metal sort of sounding riff section. And as such, it all felt like one long song, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but that also means that I feel like a track with the title of God Protocol Axiom, or, you know, Blue Moon Duel, or, you know, Architect of Darkness. These things sound so cool, but in the end I feel like their potential is lost by ending up sort of mushing together. That said, the experimental elements, whether they be using, you know, other instruments other than be used in metal, or using the electronics, do sound fantastic. It's a lot of fun, great, trippy, doomy void to go through, because this is a black and doom avant effort, if you will. It's definitely a very good album, and I do want to listen to it some more to try and pick out some of the things I definitely like more and don't like. But as of it right now, with 2 or 3 listens under my belt, I can say that it is good. I think the vocals do feel a little silly at times, but that's also probably because this guy was, you know, fucking seeing pancakes with teeth driving Camaros while he was recording his vocals. So that's to be forgiven. The experimental elements are wonderful, a definitely enjoyable avant release, though a little long, and the metal sections could have been done a little bit better. Overall, I do think it's a good album, worth your time to listen to. You know, if you were a fan of something like 666 International or Supervillain Outcast, you'll like this one. 666 International definitely was a more breathing album. There was more time for the strange psyche passages to work and breathe and expand. Whereas Supervillain Outcast was a very full frontal assassination in your face. And that's why some people didn't like it as much as they like 666 International. This one goes for a happy medium. Now, I prefer the meandering weirdness of prog. You know, I like prog and avant. I like it to just go off in its own and just get lost there. You know, so that's why I would personally lean more to a style like 666 International. I do like that they are trying to mix the two together to create ample breathing room for the metal and the experimental stuff, but I don't feel that they gave enough breathing room for the experimental and had enough variation within the metal. That said, it still is a very good album, and if you're a fan of black metal, if you're a fan of doom metal, if you got an open mind and, you know, you want something a little different, try this one out. A Umbra Omega is a very good album, and I highly recommend it to anyone who's into that sort of stuff. You know, you give a listen to a track, you'll know if you're into it. It's not for everyone, and it's going to piss a lot of people off for many reasons, I'm sure, because of their genre-bending style, but I definitely liked it. Give it a look, and hopefully you won't be disappointed. I certainly wasn't. Rock on.